I just had a funny memory pop up into my head, and I don't know why, but I want to share it. So, while I was working at the coffee shop, one of the customers that came in was just a wonderful man. He was a big fat man, but a big jolly fat black man who was just so fun and kind and easy to get along with and agreeable. And he was a musician. And I got to talking to him about Jesus Christ, there's not any chance that I can talk while this is happening.
Let's start at the beginning. I gotta get this shit on my hook.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm in a certain sense, I'm enjoying it, but it's also terrible. This guy's using a junk drawer scissor after cutting dingleberries off the dog and then giving young Timmy a bowl cut, and now he's picking out spinach from his teeth. That's just...
It could be spinach. I had a salad earlier with good Mexican food tonight. I didn't even remembered, yeah.
Zach eats salad now. I feel like that's something Dad would say. I thought I'd throw it out there.
It is kind of. You know what's funny about him? I'll let you get back to your big fat black guy story because it sounds charming and fun.
It is a great story.
Okay, good. But when we would have a family thing, like I remember something with Ken in 2013 that we are all at. This is like 11 years ago.
Yeah.
And there was like a buffet and there was a salad among the buffet. And I mean, I'm not trying to show off or anything. I'm just eating a salad for my own constitution. And our father looked at the salad and he looked at me and he's like kind of grumbled or like a nonverbal sort of a grimace. And then he just kind of like had a little bit of the salad onto his plate to be competitive. And I'm like, what? That's not the point of the salad, I don't think. I'm not eating it for spite or to rub it in your face that you generally avoid all vegetables or fruit. It's for me, and you can live with your own choices, and I don't even know what to say to that.
Well, I wish he would have competed harder at salad because that man's earned himself a good old-fashioned diabetes.
I know, and I got to watch it because, there are reasons for that have to do with sugar and other things, but a large part of it, from what I read, because I'm nervous because I don't generally take care of myself at all. I mean, other than the gym, just so I kind of feel confident and pudgy, which is kind of working and kind of not. But I just don't want the same thing to happen. And so I've lived a better life, I think. So that doesn't upset me. But then I think it's just drinking a lot of water. That's what the science says from what I read.
The way to not get diabetes is to drink a lot of water and you're free of the bitis.
I mean, that's a big portion of it. Obviously, if you're just eating like Edgar and Men in Black sugar and water, I don't think that's healthy. But
oh my God.
At the same time, yeah, I think it's your kidneys overwork. I think for years, and he was so proud of this. He's just like, I'll just have steak every night. And then Tia would say the same. Lonnie had steak every night. I was like, I think your kidneys work really hard to pull out the water and stuff and digest it. And then you're not having any water. And I think that's like the Latino side because the girlfriend here is the same thing. I'm like, do you want some water? Oh, no, I don't want any water. She was kidding. But she goes, I think it flushes all the vitamins out of my body. And I was like, oh, that's some jackass shit that I would say. Good for you.
All right. Well, what a perfect segue for jackass shit that you would say and did say. I need a clarifying point here. The way to avoid diabetes is to drink water and not eat steak. Is this what you're going with?
Well, I think that's an oversimplification, and I'm not a doctor nor am I a scientist, but I happen to understand, as the medical literature says, that one of the problems is that your kidneys overwork to pull out, water. And so water helps metabolism in general, right? And it's a metabolic issue, right? There's the pancreas is involved and the kidneys are involved. Drinking a lot of water, let's say that I can say this without being overly simplifying of things. Drinking water helps your metabolism, right? And having leafy green vegetables, which stimulate digestion, also helps your metabolism. And that the overproduction of your body's natural insulin in order to aid in digestion is one of the root causes of diabetes, rooted in like sugars and other things that are, hard for your body to digest, including protein.
It's not protein. So sugars and carbohydrates, low-grade carbohydrates, there's a lot of things that spike your insulin, and steak is not one of them. If Father went on a diet of like steak, eggs, burgers without the bun, he would not even have to inject insulin. If he just ate mostly meat with fat and eggs and vegetables and fruit, he would not even need to inject insulin any further. And he can actually fix his type 2 beatus if he just didn't eat like a campground raccoon, eating Domino's pizza followed by brownies while he tells me of his daily insulin injections. Like it was so unbelievably stupid. But no, type 2 you can eat your way out of. Like I asked him, I'm like, did the doctor suggest or imply that any of this was diet related? Not only that it caused it, but that you could undo it? And he was just like, I mean, yes, he said something about the diet caused it, but it runs in the family. And I'm like, Jesus Christ. All right, conversation over. I get it.
The real problem is that men in general don't listen to anyone. And I used to tell Alex, the French Canadian ex-wife, I was like, I tend to listen pretty good for a man. She goes, no, you listen good in general. And I think that being open-minded, whereas you could be drugs you're taking, like a prescription or something, or advice to life in general, or stepping outside of your comfort zone, being aware, having ears and eyes, being an input and an output device, because anything that goes against what he kind of already believed is either like heresy or just contravenes the known gospel. And
yeah,
I'm of the opinion that it's one of my lines. That's why I have my stupid thing that I carry on. I know you have a book too. I write the book every day. Yeah, exactly. That's wonderful.
So I've got like 6 or 7 of them with me every day.
Okay, well that seems excessive, but I mean, it's whatever gets it done for you.
No, I've one for music, one for dogs, one for specifically the book, one for specifically what we're writing. I lose track of it when it's for everything.
And that's actually wise, and I've had to, because we have the writing project we're doing. I also have a separate one for that, but my life is so insane that I would lose the books if there were more than one. So I try to keep it simple. But the point of any of this, I mean, everybody has their process. As long as your process involves listening to people at least once in a while and not knowing everything, because we're both sharp. I think you're real smart, just like I'm real smart. And sometimes we say things that are right on the money, and sometimes we say things that are so off the money and wacky and meant to be funny that within your idiocy lies a genius, and that's great. But there's never a time by which I'm like, no, I have it all figured out, and let me, bestow my knowledge upon the world. Quite the opposite. It's the world that I would hope, at least for now, would bestow its knowledge upon me, and I can put it into practice.
I mean, when Jessica came up and visited, when I visited, she found you quite fascinating, but she was having some issues with her brain at the time, where the pace at which you and I talk, she just can't keep up with when she's dealing with what's going on with her brain. But that the way you and I get information across sounds so like we're so certain all the time, and that she was wondering well, what would he think about if I told him I don't think that that's the case? I'm like, he's not unlike me. It's like if you told him I think everything that you just said was stupid, you're like, yeah, maybe it is. Yeah, I don't think she would say this, but it's easy to misunderstand the certainty with which we speak, as though you cannot disagree. I'm like, no, I welcome it at any time. And sometimes I finish a long rant of what I think is right and end it with, or maybe none of that's true, but it seems true.
Right. And so first of all, we're always going to be confident because we're tall Western European males. And I think that if you eat enough protein, you just reach a height and a comfort level with not only certainty but with bravery and go after itness. That we have this ability to just kind of be more or less okay kind of in any environment, or to feel confident in any environment, and that's great. But that doesn't mean you've ever stopped or arrived. And I always think that men can go two ways. One is like Lonnie, our father, who was so difficult and more curmudgeon-y with each passing year, and the other one was our great uncle Frank, who was just more okay and accepting and gentlemanly with each passing year. You're always opening doors and please and thank you. And I like to say that I've had enough of Lonnie. It's not that he's bad, it's just not very useful in our modern times, and that I would like to become more accepting and open. And part of the reason why I like living in Mexico is because they're so goddamn serious about manners. And if you're a gringo that has no manners, in their mind it's well, of course you don't, and I wish you weren't here. And if you do, it's such a pleasant surprise that the world just opens itself up to you. I don't know that I have it all figured out, but I can say that the confidence is kind of a byproduct, and the ultimate kind of point to any of this is just to keep knowledge going and to learn things, and I don't know, maybe have a good time or crack a joke once in a while.
Well, you better be careful where that protein and the confidence mix, because if they mix too high, that's where the diabetes comes in.
Of course.
My God, too many steaks got him to a diabetes. No, it's for sure not that. It's especially like the Domino's pizza sealed the deal for me because I was wondering what kind of food is he eating, and has he changed anything with the diagnosis of it? Because it seems to be affecting him through like both his health, but then just the very idea that he could be taken down by his own body, but to not change anything from it. Like, I've not put my mouth on a Domino's pizza in 15 years, and it has nothing to do with the taste of it. Like, after you only eat regular, reasonably made food for a while, something like that, the mouth pleasure is fine, but you can taste the lack of everything that's in it. It's like some gloopy pretend food.
My line for that is, God, hey, I'm on the spot now. I'm gonna forget what I call it. I think it's industrial post-food meal product. That's what I describe it as.
Yeah. I mean, and most people, and that's like greater than 50%, most people's diet is that.
It's a little frightening. I don't know. Here, food is a big deal, and there's almost like a weird cult of food where like the names of restaurants, like how miraculous it is. Like they call it like Trompo Imperial is a place that we saw last night. We were in Guatemala, just like walking around drunk. And it was like, ah, yes, the empire is somehow related to how much pastor we have. And it's like, it's so stupid. Like if you measure the gross national product of Mexico in dollars or in pesos, you're like, it's just a poor country. But if you measure it in our pastor, my goodness, what a riches to behold.
Oh man, yeah, barbacoa being the second most valuable Mexican, who knows? Yeah, no, we got good barbacoa out here in Texas too. That's some vapor steamed beef cheek.
Vapor steamed beef cheek. That sounds incredible. Okay, let's talk about Texas for a second. We talk about Mexico too much.
Before we move on, I want to finish the story about the Jolly Black Man.
Please, I'm sorry, and continue.
All right. So first in Texas and working at the coffee shop, he was a customer that just, when this man walks in, just everybody was just better for it. Just kind and like, it's especially with manners, just big thank yous, just wants his drink made some kind of way. And then I found out that he was a musician. We had already been talking for a while, and then he's a musician, and he's flying here to do that, and out in Sunset Boulevard at this incredible studio and all that. And so I asked him if I could just kind of go hang out with him and do some music stuff. And eventually asked him if he would take me on as like a mentor, sort of apprentice sort of a thing. But I found out that he made most of his money in the 90s doing voiceover work. And so I told him that's something I'm very interested in. I'm very good at it. And just like any person meeting another person would be skeptical, he asked me like, well, like what can you do? And I'm like, I can make my voice sound like almost anything. He's like, you do accents, this or that. And so I have all these animations on my phone just through the Bitmojis, and I showed him just from Australian to David Attenborough and just some kind of cliche classics. And so like I showed him all that, and he's just like, man, you got it. Like, you're better at this than I am, and that's why I'm wealthy. So just go do that. I'm like, Rayvon, you're great. And so we're talking about all the things that I can do, and he's like, can you do a black man? And I'm like, Rayvon, you put me in a strange position. I'm here in Austin, as much as it's Texas. I don't want to say something in such a way that he's like, man, nobody cares about any of that. If you're good at what you're doing, then that's all people care about. And I'm like, oh, no, what the fuck you think you're talking to me about? And they just ran into this whole thing and just hit him with the hood rat gangster black dude. And he fucking loved it. Who the fuck you think you're talking to? You think this is a joke? Say no joke. And I'm like, oh my, yeah, you thought it was fucking wonderful.
That's great.
Yeah.
Well, anything that I've done that was new involved me meeting new people. So keep doing it. You should do all that stuff. Lonnie always talks about it like it was like the one that got away, his voiceover career. Remember, he would do the Gaston voice in the morning from Beauty and the Beast, because there's higher testosterone in your body in the mornings. You have a deeper voice. And I mean, do all of that. Our friend down here, Jimena, just recorded on her phone a thing that ended up being a commercial, and it's running right now on YouTube, and she did it on her phone.
Yeah.
And you can do whatever. I mean, you got better gear probably than I do. I'm just recording this on my, phone and Lappy combo. But yeah, exactly. You got your little thing for the S hisses and the V pops. I don't know what the fuck.
But it was just like, for whatever reason, that moment popped into my head as I was coming home, the time when the black man put me in the position to do a black man impression in front of him. Like, Rayvon, is this a trap? Are you trapping me? Am I supposed to say no?
You've said it yourself. You just have to learn how to walk the talk. You said that there are no magic words, that it's really just how we get along with other people, and that any kind of a value or negative value that you assign to a particular thing, it's your own hangups. And it's easy to say that when you're talking to your brother, who you could, say anything to or even fart in front of with, total impunity. But when you're, when you're actually face to face with said brother, and I don't mean your blood brother,
Yeah.
then yeah, of course, it's a little weird. You have to put the rubber to the road, so to speak.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and then even like what the Fiverr app is.
I mean, I know that there's an app, and I know that Fiverr sells human services at rock bottom prices.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, but the barrier for entry for almost anything creative these days is so low, and so if everything is accessible, well, then quality and competency finds its way to the top, no matter the primate hierarchy that it's found in. And so, yeah, I've been thinking about getting one of those. But what do you want to know about Texas?
Oh, just, how things are going. Okay, so for example, by the time this actually goes out, I'm sure the event will have passed, but there are the confluence of three things, or at least two things, that I'm reasonably excited about, and they're both happening in your current home city of Austin.
Yeah.
So after, I think it's been 4 years, I guess, Vampire Weekend is releasing new music, and I've listened to them since like 2009, and they were very East Coast, and I love their shtick. And they're doing a concert on April something, maybe the 4th or whatever it is, April something or other, on the day of the eclipse in Austin.
Yeah.
And I thought that was amazing. So is that a thing you would know about or go to?
The amount of things like that to do around here are just endless. Like, I've never been in a place that's so proactive and engaged with doing stuff. Like, there's not a night of the week where there aren't a million things to do. And for the eclipse, yeah, there's all sorts of places that are just by going there, they're giving you the glasses, making a whole event out of it. And so, no, I didn't know about the Vampire Weekend one, but Jessica has sent me many events that are available out here for the eclipse. Yeah, but no, I didn't know that one was going on. But there's so much going on all the time. It's astonishing, especially now that it's getting warm again.
Okay, that's exciting. I mean, is it like specific to music stuff that you normally do? Because here, let me share what I do, and then you could tell me what you think about this. So my friends, like especially Brandon and Jimena down here, we just are always looking around for other things. And like, for example, the place in my neighborhood that we used to drink at on like Wednesdays and Thursdays, it got too popular. So when we would go, it's totally full. And Brandon's like, fuck this place, like very much in the spirit of LA, fuck this place. It's oversold. It's overblown. Way too many gringos waiting forever to get a drink. It's bullshit. So we go to a new place. And we're always trying new things. And because our barrier to entry for what we want to do is like, is the music good and are the people that we like going to be there? Then we've gone to a million things. So, por ejemplo, senor, this last weekend, I went to a thing called Sun Gay at Lago de Chapultepec, which was just a bunch of gays dancing and getting absolutely plastered. And I took a little bit of LSD. Malu had her first LSD experience. And yeah, it was incredible. And I mean, I don't think she's ever going to do it again. It's not... She's very Catholic and not in like a weird religious way, more like in it would never occur to her to try these things way. And she would be more comfortable having alcohol all the time, which is fine. It's not my thing, but that's fine. But it was great. I mean, then that's the point. I mean, and of course we find our way. You talk about the primary hierarchy all the time. We find our way to the only other hetero couple in the joint. And it was this English couple. And one of them, like their plus one or whatever from the couple, was making out with one of the girls in our group, who's like this Mexican lesbiana. And the Mexicana lesbiana and the English plus one of the straight couple ended up connecting. I was like, that was like poetry. It was amazing. And I don't know, there's just a range of crazy bullshit you could get into here. And all we really want to know are like, are our friends there and is there going to be good music?
Because I started working nights 5 days a week, it has put a damper on my social life for sure. But anytime I was going out, music was the main theme, but also like the amount of park space and open grass space here, even though it is a congested city, like it's just full of young, ambitious, motivated people. So any sort of green space here is just full, not to the brim like you can't have a space, but just everyone's out with their dog and they're running and they're exercising, they're throwing frisbee, there's a soccer game, they're throwing a football. And so yeah, I go out just to throw frisbee regularly. Yeah. Oh yeah.
Okay, well that's a little different here. We have a park nearby called Parque España and a little parklet called Parque Mexico. It's not unlike like the idea of a park where the greenery is kind of roped off and people just kind of go for the dogs. They're two great dog parks. You would appreciate this. There's like the big dog park and the little dog park. And they don't want the two, you know, because sometimes the big dogs scare little dogs and vice versa, right? It's just it's a problem. So that's amazing. And that dog park, I don't know if I sent you that photo, but has been there, I think, since the 1920s. This is just a really, really old city, and it's full of fun shit like that. That being said, it was kind of verboten to walk around because, like, our friend Liam, such an asshole, didn't even talk about these people on the show. Whatever, fuck him. He's known for walking everywhere because he's trying to save a couple of bucks, or he'll take like the metro, which is just a bus that costs like 25 pesos, which is like, or 25 cents, 6 pesos, 25 cents. There it is. And it's very economical, but it's like full to the brim with people. And for those of us who are like, you know, savage enough to walk it, you're kind of braving, I don't know, what anybody would refer to as kind of a hostile urban environment. Cars drive like assholes. There's this constant fear of kind of danger, while at the same time, everybody's kind of calm and polite. I've never really had any weirdness or violence other than like getting shaken down by the policia just one time. And that was at 4 a.m. I brought this on myself. But people, if you have any money at all, they're like, I don't want to walk around. It's not really civilized. And you could either be kidnapped or shaken down or any number of things. And so everything you described doesn't really happen here. What you described sounds more like California. And here it's like almost like you're like holding your breath and going for a swim in the deep end. And you don't want to hang out in the deep end too long. You could go if you know how to swim, but like it's not really worth the trouble. And I don't know that I believe that, but the girl, because it's like, it reminds her of Liam. She goes, you gringos, always walking around. I was like, well, no, I'm actually kind of a lazy sack of shit and have been known to Uber very short distances because it's so economical here. And I think that you and I are much closer to eye than other people that we both know who might happen to speak English.
Yeah. But so it reminds me of what California once was. I could see that, but like, no, I've never seen anything like what it's like out here every evening where the sun is out, every Friday, every Saturday, every Sunday. Because if it's not music, which there are endless amounts, and so like my friends have residencies at places, so there's always days of the week where they're always going to be at particular places at a sunset, a rooftop bar from 4 to 6 to play while the sun goes down. But that's everywhere here. There's so much talent and so much music, but also comedy. I mean, comedy is everywhere. Many comedians, very good. We've had comedy shows at the gym that I work at. There's just comedy everywhere, and it's not all great. And open mics everywhere, karaoke everywhere. One of the first things I noticed when I got here, it was 105 degrees, and everywhere I looked were just people from 20 to 40 just running and with dogs and with their partner. It is the most fitness-oriented city I've ever been in.
Okay, that's nice. I think the idea of dogs is pretty universal in any city. That was the first thing that reminded me of kind of a very New Yorkie / LA environment, was the neighborhood I live in now in Mexico City. Condesa is, I mean, the specific part of it where I am now, it's all like gays and pretty girls and interesting dogs. And I couldn't have been happier. I was here with Alex and French Canadian X. We were frying on acid and went to walk off like a ramen, and it was like incredible. And so that's I think a part of any city that's great. But LA is like that too, where like every Sunday, and there are these places that are so played out, like Runyon Canyon, where every idiot and their stepsister has to go out and walk right up Runyon on like a Saturday or a Sunday, and it's really well played out. And correct me if I'm wrong, I think that part of it is just like you were kind of foisted into a new environment where like if you weren't going to go out and do shit, you're probably just going to stay home and be sad, which you're not going to be happy doing that. So
no, there's an endless amount of things to do at all hours all the time, but like alcohol is the theme of a lot of places, and I'm just not only I don't really drink, but also that energy of everybody being drunk I find a little unsavory.
Well, let me tell you how savory things are down here with all of that alcoholism. It's such a part of the culture here, that borracho kind of culture, and I I'm not trying to force my psychedelic ways onto the local population because I think I would get busted in a hurry. I think I already stick out like a sore thumb. But I can definitely say that you and I share a particular opinion about alcohol. I don't really need it. If people use it to kind of connect with other people or to like reduce their anxiety or their inhibitions, I don't really have those things. I hear that they're a standard issue with most humans, but I don't think I was gifted those. Maybe Lonnie ate enough steaks before we were conceived that all of the anxiety washed away, and genetically it's just not possible. I don't know why. I don't need any of that. That being said, because I'm also kind of go with the flow here, I've definitely waded back into Team Borracho, and there's a phrase that we say here, it's borracho pero bueno muchacho. So yeah, and I mean, I will drink sometimes with Brandon till if like he's just bored or whatever, he meant is not having it till 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning. I mean, I've had times where I've come back here at 6 a.m. no problem, and we have to be careful what we're doing at 6 a.m. because we know friends who have been beaten and robbed and then have called the policia, who also beat and robbed them. So it can get real hairy in a hurry, especially at that hour. They know they kind of have you and they can fuck with you, and that's the only time I've run into problems was very drunk, very late. But that being said, there are things that are definitely cultural and that stand out based on what everybody else is kind of doing. And not that I need the alcohol, but damn, it's so cheap. And then you end up doing things that you wouldn't do anywhere. So if in the past I were to be drinking in other settings, it would be beer or wine because I don't really need much and it's fine. But good sir, are you familiar with this offering they have called mezcal?
I mean, you should have seen the way your face lit up while you said it. I mean, yeah. I mean, you turned into a Joker smile. Like, yeah, I'm aware. I'm aware of it. And yeah, I mean, I've had it. Hard alcohol. I feel the same about it as I do about coffee. Like, nobody enjoys the flavor of any of that trash. We're just in it for the felt sense of the experience.
It's very much a part of the experience. And the locals here don't even really drink it. They are much happier to have like a whiskey or a rum or a vodka. The new girlfriend, she loves the vodka. Like, she's miserable, and then she has a few vodkas and suddenly she's hilarious and delightful. And that's very common amongst Mexicanos. Like, they don't want any of this shit. She's like, tequila makes me angry. She's like, she wants to fight people. I was like, okay, I think that's pretty universal. But for whatever reason, the local in the know gringo, and I think I'll nominate it myself. I will choose myself, bestowed as in the know, would love to have a smoky mezcal. And it's fucking gasoline, man. And it's kind of terrible. But when you consider it, if it's well made and if it's like very like puro and duro, like very pure, very strong, then there's just nothing better. And I mean, my God, I cracking jokes. I would love to do a show just one time, and this is with your permission because I know you're on a sober kick and I do respect that. I've been there many times myself, whereby I would just have a bottle of mezcal and get progressively drunker, and we could do like a science and see, Pepsi versus Coke, is this any good, or am I just confident and stupid in my own head, or am I genuinely funnier, a little bit loosey-goosey and borracho?
Oh, I mean, not only, yeah, but I am on a sober kick, but I am non-reliant on anything, and alcohol has never been a vice of mine. I would have an alcohol anytime that we do something like this. I mean, if you want to do your Pepsi test or whatever you just said that I don't drink, that's fine. But I would be happy to have some shots. I've been thinking about that recently.
Okay, well, if it wouldn't fuck your shit up, I mean, I would love to do that. Yeah, it's honestly, it's just like a different state of mind. And I think I came here and did this. I don't recall exactly which episode it was, but on like, it would have been an early one that we didn't actually use, but with like a little bit of the end of an acid trip, just like a micro dose, and that kind of makes you feel kind of loose and uninhibited too.
Yeah.
But like some of the dumbass shit that Brandon and I will come up with, I told you, like, he's got this idea, because he used to live in an area called Lomas at Chapultepec. It's like the Beverly Hills of Mexico City, and he's like, I always like the people that I see here. They look like old Spaniards.
Yeah.
It's so stupid. So then old Spaniards became this thing we were saying, and then one time at like 5 a.m, in my mind, old Spaniards were jeans. Yeah. And old Spaniards, like jeans you wear, and old Spaniards were motorcycle jeans for whatever reason. We joke about it all the time. It's just a stupid thing you come up with, but it would not have come out of anything other than being fully fucking wasted on either Coke and Fernet or mezcal, possibly both, and like a couple of drags of something herbal. So yeah. I don't know. I think that if I'm too rigid, then I'm not funny, and I think that if I'm too flat and wasted by either not sleeping correctly or being completely smashed the night before, which obviously go hand in hand, that also cannot be funny. I think somewhere in between, where like I'm a little bit trash and like a little bit kind of fully sober, is a great place to be. That kind of like pendulum theory.
Yeah, I mean, I spent 20 years riding the pendulum, son.
You and me both, good sir. And yeah. I think that since 2016, when I kind of rediscovered thug life, so to speak, what's the black guy's name again? Rayvon. So did you bring up Rayvon because I brought up Javon in the course of the week?
No. He is somebody that I was speaking to a lot, and now I don't anymore. And so sometimes he just pops into my head. But no, I was walking into my place thinking about the time Rayvon requested I do a black man impression in front of him, and I was like, oh, I don't know. No, just he's on my mind. He's just a really swell fella.
All right, good enough. Let me ask you a question here. Since we've been doing this, have you gone up on stage anywhere and done in your shtick any place?
Not shtick. I mean, I've read spoken word stuff, and then me and my buddy make music at his place. But no, I haven't. Like the spoken word was fine. Again, not having weekday evenings free now has put somewhat of a limit on that. But no, I've gone up on stage and played kazoo a couple times. Yeah, so I've like it's not as silly as it sounds. I have a couple expensive kazoos, and they fit in with a twangy bluegrass experience better than you'd imagine.
Okay, so if I laugh, it's only because that word, first of all, is just hilarious. The onomatopoeia of the word
Yeah.
kazoo is hilarious. So I wouldn't know the first thing about a kazoo, nor would I a harmonica, but I've known you to have that little, what is that little thing you pluck when we're all taking DMT?
Mouth harp, Jew harp, jaw harp.
That's awesome. So I think that's great. Just because I laugh at it doesn't mean I'm not like I think it's like stupid or beneath me. Quite the opposite. It's light years above me because you could give me that kazoo and I would think back to my only kazoo experience was like a Cracker Jack prize where you get in the most dirty plastic chintzy thing that ever called its way out of China. And I'm like, well, I remember the sound. It's kind of duck-like, I would say, like a duck call.
Yeah, it can be. I mean, the it doesn't make any noise on its own. It's all comes from the noise that you make.
It's the funniest thing I've heard all day. Imagine that. It doesn't make any noise on its own. Okay. So you would say that it's an instrument, is what you would say.
No. That you don't blow through it.
Okay. So you would say that it's an instrument, is what you would say.
No. That you don't blow through it. You are the instrument. It's just a go-between between the sounds that you can make, and you put it through that thing that has a little buzzy vibrator thing in it. So like it reads like a flute or like a woodwind type instrument, but no, like because I can make an assortment of noises and sing well, that no, I'm just using my voice through that thing, and that's what does it.
Okay. So that's less ridiculous. What you mean to say is you can't articulate different sounds as you could. Because I used to play the clarinet.
Yeah.
When you play the clarinet, you get your little buzzy woodwind thing going, but then you finger the item, and fingering the item makes the different tones. But what you're saying is that you make the tones and articulate it through the thing.
Yeah. It can only do the one thing that it is, and every other dynamic change of anything comes from the way your voice goes through it. And same with the jaw harp. If you just pluck it on its own, it doesn't do anything. The only way it makes sound is how wide you open your mouth and throat and where you place your tongue. I've always loved obscure instruments. Like I still do my sound baths every week, and like I have a fucking rainbow crystal harp and a wave drum and these bowls and my melodica and all sorts of bells and chimes and drums. And I want to bring my synthesizer to it too. Fucking what?
Bring all that mess. Do you know what a harmonium is?
Of course.
Our mutual friend, Scott Seaver has a harmonium, and he's known to play his harmonium sometimes. That guy's great and does fun things with Jack Black, who's having the second moment, and stupid viral video singing a Britney Spears song from 20 years ago. Man, the bigger and crazier his beard gets, the funnier he becomes in my estimation.
Yeah, he's as beloved as a person who has made movies and made music can be, just like the jolly, friendly, you can't help but love him sort of a dude. Yeah, he should have as many resurgences as necessary, because that dude is tremendous.
Well, and in keeping with the spirit of the obscure instrument, the Jimmy Fallon saxoboom thing, I still to this day don't know if he actually plays that song or if it's just the pre-recorded song on the saxoboom.
Oh no, he definitely plays it. Yeah. Oh, Jack Black he has such a silliness about him. It's easy to forget how talented that he is.
No, he is extremely talented. His mom was like an Apollo engineer. She was like doing the math that saved the Apollo 13 astronauts, like while while Jack was in there gestating. And then more importantly, he went to Crossroads, which helped shape creatively any of the, creative weirdos that come through LA. Crossroads is one of the premier private schools in LA and West Los Angeles. And we were raised to believe that you could find a good public school. That's what Lonnie always used to say, but I think that's rubbish. And some of the people I've met who have gone through the private school system all over the US, from like Lehigh in New York to like Crossroads in West Los Angeles, are amazing human beings. And not that you have to, necessarily become amazing or were before to necessarily go to those schools, only that if you have gifts, they're better placed in a, academic environment like that.
Yeah, who would have thought that rather than making everybody do asinine shit that's completely irrelevant, you go, what do you like? What are you good at? Let's do a whole bunch of that. Oh, you like this? Let me expand on this thing that you're super passionate about for a long time until you're incredible at it. What a fucking rare concept that is. That's insane. Like how is any school system not doing something like that? The public school system is trash and it has been for 100 years.
I agree. And if we look at all aspects of life, how everything's changed, Yeah. Sorry, the girl's texting me on the phone. Okay, the perfect example of this. She works at a place where they do job placement for like higher education. So you've got a job, you're okay at it, and then you want to get a graduate degree and get a better job. The government funds her work to do this. She's been doing this for 10 years. Nice. And I said, well, how many people go, through that and make it out? She goes, we start with 50 every year and like 5 make it out. And I was like, okay. And then I looked out the window and there's like 20 Rappi guys. Rappi's the little motorcycle and bicycle food delivery guys. And this time last year, there were none. And this year, sitting around waiting for the fucking call to come in, like firefighters or Ghostbusters or something, is the Rappi guy chilling, listening to music, shooting the shit with their friends, whatever. And it's all technology based. And so that schools haven't changed one fucking iota, right, in 100 years with that stand and deliver nonsense that Lonnie and all that whole generation were, so gung-ho about in the 60s and 70s. Everything has changed because of technology. And anybody, probably yourself included, these days has to find knowledge in what we call the knowledge base, which these days it's somebody else who's smarter and that you somehow kind of relate to, and they've recorded a YouTube video. And that's where the knowledge of the world lives.
Yeah. And I like learning experientially. Like the people that I hang out with musically, I'm new at this and I know that I'm talented and I'm capable, but if you surround yourself with a bunch of people who are better at the shit that you want to do and that you love, then it just happens. It's just a matter of time.
Totally. And different people have different aptitudes for different things. And it's not to say that like you can train, 1,000 monkeys on 1,000 typewriters to cook up a Shakespeare for you. I think that's nonsense. Yeah. But what it does mean is that if you have any gifts whatsoever, like there's this nerdy black guy I know, Jeff, who's such a geek for music and once in a while he'll put his techno beats out, kind of like you are, where he has this idea about music and he's like, but only for like 5 people. I was like, no, you could do with more than 5 people. You could have you could have 1 million people if you're really very, narcissistic about it. But at the very least, you could see what other people are doing and kind of apply it. I do this all the time with our business. We borrow ideas from various people, and people ask me about creativity all the time. I was like, I'll give you a hint. Don't tell anyone. We steal a lot of this shit from somebody else.
I mean, that's what we all are, just a conglomeration of all the things that we stole, but they're all a little bit different than what other people stole, and then we push them all together and we call it a personality.
That's something right there. You should break that one into some stone or put it on a tablet somewhere.
I mean, to have an original, never before thought up idea, like the very concept is romanticized. We're all just taking little bits or large bits, and then there's a great saying on it. Creativity is when you've borrowed or stolen so many things from so many people that you've forgotten where they came from. And all of a sudden, you just are all of that.
Sure. Yeah. No, I like that a lot. I'm the first to admit I love our conversations because they so much remind me of this trainer that I had for years, who's still my good friend. We still text now and again, who is funny guy, smart guy, and very philosophical, kind of how we both are. And, I would joke with him. I was like, I have 2 original ideas and everything else is just bullshit that I took from somebody else, and I was lucky. I feel lucky to have my 2 ideas. And one of them is the solar science thing that I, wrote a book a few years ago that nobody read, that didn't go anywhere, but I'll probably come back to it. And the other one is just about physical activity. And I'm sure you could chime in on this too, just like he did. Working out different parts of your body stimulate different parts of your brain. in ways that are kind of predictable. And that if I know I want to be more logical, I want to work out my upper half of my body. And if I want to be more intuitive or emotional, I work out the lower half of my body. Have you had that experience?
No. I mean, I do remember you talking about what running did to you versus other things doing to you, but no, I have not ever had that experience that I could articulate. But I mean, I've always been an exercising person, and it just seems to get my head right no matter what version of it that I do.
Sure, and that has to do with how that we're these this continuum of life, and on the evolutionary path, you call it the primate hierarchy, but
Yeah.
we became high up on that animal hierarchy more broadly is just by walking and running long distances and picking up and moving heavy things. So that we're people these days, I always joke about Americans, all you need is about 3 generations once you make it into the American dream before you become kind of mentally ill and develop some kind of drug problem. It's just how it goes. But if you get back to basics, the primate hierarchy demands that we walk long distances and pick up heavy things.
Yeah, all right. So on that note, I got a good one for you. I can't believe this hasn't made its way in yet. So a buddy of mine at the gym, very fit guy, very philosophical guy, 25 years old, gives me hope for that entire generation when there's times when I'm not feeling that hope very much for the mid-20s folks. So we noticed the other day that everybody comes to the gym, and yet a lot of the people that are stuck there and over again is like trying to deal with settling the mind, either from some sort of traumatic experience or some sort of lack of meaning that they have in their life. And so going to the gym and doing these farmer carries and lifting these heavy things, putting them over there, that we're all just farmer larping when really he works on a farm, and he takes large bags of soil, puts it in the ground, plants a tree, and it's really hard. And by doing that, same workout, let's say the same amount of weight, but what you get to stand back and look at is fucking legacy, meaning, tilling the soil, becoming one with the earth, fingers in the dirt. And so now I look at the gym at all these farmer larpers doing a farmer carry with heavy things, wondering why it's not fixing everything. Like, well, what if you just worked on a farm and you rose with the sun and you threw a 150-pound bag of pig feed over your soil, and you're like, look, that thing's alive because I fed it. And at the end of the year, you're like, Jesus Christ, I'm strong. And I've planted a 4-acre field of trees that are going to last 200 fucking years. And now you have all the meaning built up into it. But things have changed so much in the last 30 years that we're struggling to want to find out, like, why do I always feel like I should be doing something else more meaningful? It's like, well, because our brains were always this other thing. And now technology has entered in a way where it's like we're making sense of it, but it doesn't seem to agree with like the vessel underneath. I'm like, yeah, because we're doing fucking 2024 shit with 1850 brain.
Right, exactly. And farmer LARPing is one of the funniest things. That's amazing, because what happens when we really have a problem, and we do this all of the time in rehab. I worked in the 2 big rehabs in Malibu for years, and we get back to basics. There are all these concept rehabs. And one of the concept rehabs is called the ranch. And on the ranch, you do everything you just described, but for real, and with also the other purpose of not just feeding the animals and tilling the soil, but to get your dumb ass clean and sober, because it's one of the hardest things in the world to do. Just this weekend, I was at the gay, dance association, whatever the fuck it's called, Sun Gay, taking the drugs and having a good time. And the one lesbian girl meeting just about anybody she wanted to. We were all very envious of her. She's impressive. But the guy who was with us, this guy, Sinai, he's an actor. He's been on Narcos and stuff. And he works for big casting agency down here. He's really nice. He's really funny. And we were talking about the ranch that they have down here. And I was like, oh, you mean like the rehab? He's like, well, it's not like rehab exactly, because they let you drink. And if you want to smoke a cigarette, you can do that too. But like, it's very much designed to like, you're waking up at dawn, you're taking care of these animals. If you want to go anywhere, you're riding a fucking horse. And basically it's just a lot of downtime because you're just working with like the available daylight. You're just doing whatever the hell the earth kind of demands of you. We should all do that. We should be so lucky. And my opinion on this, I tend to be a little bit more of a apocalypse hound, shall we say. I think that soon enough, in the not so distant future, we all will be doing that, because in places like here where the seasonal rainfall is down 30-something% that we normally get here in Mexico City, we're all kind of fucked and having to ration. I mean, there are places that you get like a piss trickle of water because it's like hard for water to get there and it's hard to store water. So we'll get there back to that eventually. But I think a lot of the displeasure, and I would argue, I would counter your thing because we're getting older and not noticing the passage of time. I would say in the last 50 years, since like the 70s, things have gotten really weird. And we need to all kind of return to our roots, so to speak, at least every once in a while.
Dude, the amount of people that I've spoken to that have the same fantasy and yet with no plan in place to obtain it. I want to have land. I want to grow my own fruits and vegetables. I want to have my own dogs for social and fun and play, but I want to raise my own cows. I want to have my own chickens. The amount of people that have said that to me with no specific plan in place, but that's the ideal fantasy world, is like this direct reflection and response to that this world, this modernity and advancement seems to be just reminding us that that is not really what we do as people, even though it is what we do now as people.
Koyaanisqatsi, have you ever seen that movie before? Koyaanisqatsi, there are 3 of those Scotsi movies. Yeah. It's like a native word from somewhere in the Americas. Yes. Okay, so they're just these like long like B-roll video of like, what do you call it? Stop motion stuff. Not stop motion. What's the other one? What's the opposite of stop motion?
Go stay.
There it is. Thank you.
Go stagnant.
Time lapse, you sarcastic cunt. So there's these time lapses of like people rushing through crowds and driving on freeway, all the normal modern shit. And it's just not who we are. It's not really who we are. And I think that what's funny is that I think that we kind of, we gravitate toward this called punctuated equilibrium in evolutionary biology, whereby at times we kind of like cluster around a certain thing very quickly, like a change around a certain event will happen very quickly because that's kind of what nature demands of us. And there are some things where I think they're very adaptive. As much as you tease these farmer LARPers, that's an adaptive choice.
Yeah,
we're not doing it because it's going to make us worse. We're doing it, it's going to make us better. But if you push all the way forward, there are these maladaptive choices like let's celebrate Hamas, let's all go vegan, any number of things. There's a whole rage. It's all the stuff that you rage on. I accept that it's just part of the idiot left. I'm just like, these are my friends, they're fine. But there are those things that are maladaptive that are happening all the time, and that not only are not people not speaking up about, unless you're like Joe Rogan or I don't know, whoever else people on your side of the aisle tend to revere, they're just kind of like accepted, and it's like you're weird if you don't do it. Like there are good things like that, like carrying a reusable bag, right? If I have a reusable bag, I will use it again, and I will not create a plastic item that will never be destroyed. That makes good sense to me. Celebrating terrorists makes no sense to me. Eating no animal products whatsoever, even though for like hundreds of thousands, if not millions of years, we have adapted to eating animal parts of some kind, to me seems maladaptive. What are some of the other lefty bullshit that you have a problem with? Come on.
I'm not even in that headspace that I could just think about it off the top of my head. But yeah, I mean, cutting off the making children go through sex changes when they're 6 years old, it becomes like a mind virus and gets so popular and then gets adopted as a part of your like personality and so ideologically driven, like this is your new religion. And that's the kind of fervor that you see in these people, like the maniac eyes and the intensity of these beliefs, that to someone who's just like trying to be objective and rational, it's like, I don't see why you're even saying any of this. And they have taken it on as the main focal point of their personality. It's terrifying at times.
It is terrifying. Okay, so like one of the great maladaptive things in my opinion is COVID. So COVID would never have happened were we not a completely global society. Everything moves around. We're all connected. Right? If we put out methane or industrial pollutants of some kind, it'll eventually get either into the air, into the water, into the soil, and it's going to fuck us all. And in addition to that, every once in a while, probably not all the time, maybe it happens again in our lifetime, maybe it doesn't, right? The statistics say that what happened with COVID was probably like a once in a century thing, right? Not unlike the Spanish flu, they used to call it, the influenza thing in the 1918s or whatever. But if that's a modern thing that's happened because of how things move really quickly, there has to be a modern solution. The modern solution is is take the fucking shot, right? Take the vaccine. But on both sides of the aisle, in like, for example, in British Columbia, I have a business associate, his daughter got COVID and had to like go to the hospital. And I was like, well, it's all these fucking granola crunchy cunts up there in BC who are like, no, I'm not going to take the vaccine because it's not natural, or my body is, somehow going to develop defenses. No, your body isn't going to develop defenses because it's a modern thing that thrived in a modern environment whereby it was taking planes and ships and cars and everything else to like spread around. You need to have a modern solution for that. The other extreme are the Trumps of the world who are like, well, I'm not taking it because I have a giant fucking ego that's so deleterious to society that I can't see beyond my own sombrero-sized ego, and I'm not going to do it because somebody told me to do it, which usually that somebody was a doctor or like a politician backed up by a doctor. And I was like, well, that's retarded too. So on both sides of the aisle, I think what we really need to do is to stop giving play to both sides, these extreme sides, because what you said is 100% accurate. Well, if it's rational and other people can come to similar conclusions and it makes sense, then probably we should do it. But COVID was the great litmus test by which can we survive as a modern society? And I would argue we largely failed, at least in the States. It went everywhere. It killed 1 million people, and it didn't have to do any of that. And it's really because of our own pig-headedness or stupidity.
Yeah, it was a wild ride. I thought about a couple more, and one of them I think we've talked about before, but referring to so the accept everybody thing, like referring to a pedophile as a minor attracted person, and that they're like, and that they deserve, I don't even know what they deserve, our sympathy or our understanding, and it's no fault of theirs that they want to fuck kids. It's like, well, that's true. It's no fault of theirs that they want to fuck kids, but if you go ahead and you fuck kids, you're done. Yeah. Oh, and telling everybody that everybody's beautiful and fat people are healthy and all that. It's like, well, if everybody's beautiful, then it doesn't mean anything. And telling somebody that it's okay to be fat just because you don't want to hurt their feelings, sometimes we need to have our feelings hurt, and it doesn't mean you're a bad person, and it doesn't mean you should feel bad about yourself while you're trying to get better or trying to get fit. But like, it's not an ideal way to live your life, man. That's a very bad precedent.
Sure, I agree. And so the first thing you mentioned is, it kind of brings us the second thing. So the first thing, if everybody's equal, right, I'm just living my truth, that's all those granola mamas who are like, I'm not going to give my kid a vaccine because they're like, no, I'm just as much, or I learned as much with my 15 minutes on YouTube as a doctor did in 40 years of their private practice. That's absurd. I remember at the very beginning of COVID thinking that the US is going to have a real hard time with it because we don't like authority and we really don't like science. You put those two things together, that bug's going to stick around for a while. And then that brings us to the second thing, because if everybody is kind of like on this even playing field, then we have no sense of discernment. We can't discern one thing for another. So it's like, who's a real attractive person? Giselle Bundchen, the Tom Brady's ex-wife's hot Brazilian model. Well, she's just as equal as like Lizzo. And I mean, a lot of it comes down to like personal taste, but there are objective things like, body mass indicators and I don't know, cholesterol levels and I don't know, other shit that I don't really know about, that it's meaningful to human biology and science, that says that Lizzo and Giselle Bundchen are not equal, and that you can't really say, I mean, you can physically be attracted to things like big, thick booties or, rail thin Brazilian models, but like, you can't really argue the health of one versus the other. There are scientists, or at least like experts, let's say, even if like a dietitian isn't necessarily a scientist, who can say that we can discern A from B. And we're living in this society where we're either so embroiled in hatred of this other thing, we're so good at discerning that we mean to kill the other side, that's kind of the right, or we're so blind to even the idea of discernment, like on the left, that everybody is somehow equal, and to even mention somebody's difference is like insulting and wrong and somehow trauma, which is equally absurd, just on the other end of the scale.
Yeah. I mean, discernment and the understanding or even the belief in competency that somebody can be a master at something, and people can't tell the difference between that and someone who watched a YouTube video on something. Like, that's a dangerous place to be in, man. And same with the Lizzo thing. There's a meme going around right now that's like, all right, if Lizzo is so beautiful, how come girls get mad when you tell them they look like Lizzo?
That's exactly what I was referring to. I saw that same meme. We are in the same cultural currency. Yeah, no, I agree. And it's what's frustrating is that it's what we're largely talking about. David Foster Wallace is one of my favorite writers. It talks about prescriptivist grammar versus descriptivist grammar. Prescriptivist says there's a right way to spell a word and to say a thing, et cetera, whereas descriptivist says things kind of change. We have to kind of adapt to that change, right? And so what's funny about us in our interesting conversations is that one of the earliest things we said in this particular go-round, shall we say, had to do with, well, we're learning things from other experts on YouTube. And so things are changing, and we do have access to information. But what we also said is that if moronic people believe simplistic answers are out there and they look for them simplistically, then they're only going to reaffirm their own kind of stupid nonsense. One of my favorite people in my little corner of the world is a person who's a little older than me. He's very smart, and he, just like us, is an old California person where he has Redlands, Thousand Oaks, and Pasadena roots. And he's married to a Jewish lady, which these are all things that I appreciate. And he's just really bright. And what he said, and I'll never forget this, he said that the internet makes smart people smarter and stupid people stupider. If you know how to think critically, because you either had a good education or just somebody kind of poked at you until you thought for yourself, or made up your mind in a way that other people could kind of relate to, not that you have to please everyone, but that there are some things that are objectively true. So if you can go through that process of objectivity, of rigor, right, of like arguing with yourself or having people that can like pick apart ideas to see what's good and not, then the internet is a great place. There are academic papers and people giving long talks on shit that's like a brain dump, where they like accumulated this vast knowledge and then happened to give a TED talk and then had like a diarrhea of the brain for like a full hour, and you're like the downstream recipient of said mental diarrhea. That's wonderful. But if it's like Alex Jones and the frogs are gay, or any other of these morons, even Elon's become pretty ridiculous with a lot of the shit he's saying, who is, very intelligent person, one of the most like worldwide, one of the most successful people in like modern human history. He's kind of bought into a lot of dumb bullshit. It's a person that I've met that I actually kind of looked up to. At least the fruits of his braininess were kind of there for all time. But he's kind of cornered himself because of political beliefs running up against his business ambitions. It's kind of silly. So if we're lucky enough to be able to think for ourselves, or to like say think critically, then the internet can be a great tool. But if every kind of passing fart that goes in front of your screen you happen to think is perfume, you're going to have a bad time.
Yeah, we're all susceptible to the traps of our own mind, for sure. But that there's a principle that applies to what you were saying about the smart getting smarter and the dumb getting dumber, and this applies in a lot of situations. I've never thought of it in this context that you described, but yet to those who have everything, more will be given. For those who have nothing, everything will be taken. And that's intelligence-wise too. If you're kind of a moron and you're putzing around for moron shit, you're just going to slide down that moron scale. And if you're capable of finding good information, have the wherewithal to get more of it, know what's good, discern what's good and all that, then there will be a transcendence there. But they're falling away in both directions.
Right, exactly. And so like there are things like I was entertaining. So I'm really a big believer in the idea of punctuated equilibrium. I think it's just how all of a sudden things will kind of snap into focus. And all the way up until just before October of last year, I was like, you know what? I live in Mexico and this has been a unique adventure, and I would like to have myself a tattoo. I would like to affix an icon or idea to my body in a permanent way that will be painful to put on and almost impossible to remove, or at least like have a bat-shaped scar on my body forever. And then all this shit went down with Israel, and I started talking to all of my Jewish friends, which is a fuckload. It's way more than your average person. And I was reminded of all of the things, like Jews have always kind of been this other, and me, us, I would say, being oddly verbal and smart have kind of been a part of that other, even if we're not like culturally a part of that. Like there is like an understanding that if you're smart and there are Hebrews, y'all will get along. And this worked for me in my business and a lot of businesses since I was very young, and my social life, like friends and girlfriends and even the ex-wife. So that kind of made sense. And so ever since the October 7th thing, that terrible thing in Israel, the whole tattoo thing is off the table. Why? Do I talk about tattoos with my Jewish friends? No, of course not. But just the idea that I'm kind of had to like snap my whole business back to focus and realize that there is this tiny cross-section of people that have been nice enough to me and I've been nice enough to them, that we all consider ourselves friends. I'm like, I don't really need any of that nonsense. And so all of this like Hamas nonsense in the culture these days, I was like, man, all y'all look like you're just like down with I can't get down with those terrorists, man. I'm sorry, I'm not. That doesn't mean like destroy every like Palestinian woman and child in your crosshairs, far from it. We want to avoid that if at all possible. And by we, I mean not me, and obviously somebody else's problem. But like, what I really mean to say is that like at times, like we're either gonna like, here's another thing that's is big in the culture. We're either gonna migrate back, snap back, like in punctuated equilibrium, back to being farmers, or snap forward into I've made enough money to avoid some of the problems that we're all discussing because I can afford a gym and a trainer and a support system to help me do what I want. We're either becoming, future Mega Man, so to speak, or going back to like the soil. So I don't know. I kind of want to, I don't know, be Mega Man, but that's just me.
Well, for starters, you don't know that Palestinian child doesn't have a toy box full of bunker busters, buddy. So you better be careful there. I like the term punctuated equilibrium because I didn't have a phrase for that. I see a lot of things hierarchically, that those hierarchies are always changing based on things happening in the culture. But that's the concept that you're talking about, punctuated equilibrium, that these ideas take root, take hold, become popular, become a part of these people's personalities, and then we clamor for some sort of high authority position in that new thing that has never even been in existence before. But like, hierarchies are always shifting and changing based on what's happening in the culture, but that I never thought of it, and that there was a name for it. But yeah, that's a good one. I like that.
It's a borrowed term specifically from biological evolution, but it definitely plays. You can analogize it, right? In science, we analogize concepts so that we can see things more simply. Anything in science that's become kind of rooted in fact, like pi r squared or the square of the sum of the distance, I don't know, stuff like that, they're always very simple. And so we analogize an idea in one branch of science so that it makes sense someplace else, and we can kind of carry that with us. But specifically, that concept is like, if I was an ichthyostega worming around in the muck, and then I suddenly hopped up onto the land where it's grass and rocks and shit, I better real fucking fast learn how to breathe these gills in this environment. And if I don't, I'm going to die. And that happens all the time. I mean, there are things like in the Philippines, there's some group of boys that are known for holding their breath underwater for long periods of time. And they have like developed like a swim bladder, and their spleens are bigger, something like that.
Yeah.
You're going to snap into place and figure out how to survive, or you're going to die. And of course, those that survive, they tend to have offspring, and those offspring tend to have those skills, et cetera, or those characteristics, let's say, et cetera. So we can analogize the idea of like swimming Filipinos who can hold their breath for long periods of time. That's a funny phrase.
I believe it's Philippines adjacent. It's not the Philippines, but I have seen that, and it's been thousands and thousands of years that they've been spending all of their time in the water and have thusly adapted.
Sure, absolutely. A relative blink in the eye in terms of the cosmos, in terms of universal or geological time. But the idea basically is that there are these times when things kind of like snap into focus, and I'm a big believer in that. And the more crazy and absurd everything kind of gets in the States, I just kind of laugh. I'm just like, I don't even really live in that country. Like when there'll be like a Facebook or an Instagram thread, and somebody will put the Michael Jackson gif eating the popcorn. He'll just say, I'm just here for the comments. I've become kind of that gif where I'm just eating the popcorn and here for the comments. I'm waiting for the two extreme sides of the US to kind of destroy each other, and then maybe somehow make more money then and come back and do something different with my life in the States. But as of right now, I'm just like in this other category, and I'm not really down with all that.
Well, I was thinking of the two directions that things are going. So like, it seems like the poor are getting poorer, the rich are getting richer, but there's also this like, everything is technology and will be solved through that. And then there's the Luddites who were like, aren't going to adapt it for any reason. But at the same time, if things fall apart, and what the Luddites are doing are farming and learning how to do things on that level, well, maybe there'll be a place for them. But then I imagine the far end of the technology spectrum just being like, you remember Ninja Turtles? There was Brain. It was just like an oily brain inside of a gigantic body. I imagine that we're all going to be in just like this harvest of clear bins in an oily liquid as just like a brain living a virtual digital existence that vastly exceeds everything we would possibly think of, but really we're just a wilting, oily fetus of a thing inside of a tube, and then like the internet goes out and all the oily fetuses die and all the dirty farmers survive.
That's quite a future we're looking forward to.
Yeah. Just in a gigantic cylinder that's like 2 miles long long and 6 miles high, like a baseball stadium of glass enclosed, just coagulated, jellied people, but really just the brain is being used and everything is inside. That seems like where the end game is there. Because like even for the people, let's say you're not attractive, you're not good at things, but you have a good amount of money somehow, like, well, the real world just brings you down, man. And so if you can live an entire existence by not having to participate in any of this, but you get to have your own virtual existence for the remainder of your life, and that's better, I don't see why somebody wouldn't want to do that.
Are you kidding me? That's exactly what they're trying to do. So Elon Musk and Peter Thiel and all these, rich tech cunts are doing exactly that. I think that Elon is one of the best examples of that. Have you seen how horrible he looks with his shirt off?
Yeah, he's like a little beluga whale.
He's got a gut. You can tell he doesn't ever hit the exercise cycle or any of the fucking, he doesn't ever go to the exercise store. There have already been people calling his drug use into question. And then, of course, Gwen Shotwell at SpaceX is like, oh, I collected Elon's urine sample personally in my mouth, and I can attest to him having a pure stream of urine completely untainted by drugs. I'm like, Gwen, you'll say anything for that man. The both of you are fucking liars, and he's a goddamn drug addict. Not that there's anything wrong with that, because he's really smart, but that there's this understanding that somehow he can kind of get away with it all. His hair in the early 2000s was already back and gone. He's already thinning out and shit. And he's like, do me the extra, plugs per square centimeter and make me look like a Peaky Blinders.
Yeah, that shit is robust.
So he's got like a little mop, and it kind of, I don't know, does he trim it? Is it like Ed Begley where he changes the hair based on his mood or the occasion?
Yeah, it makes like a suction cup sound when you pop it off. It just like has some snaps, like a nice 80s jacket.
I don't know, man. But that's the future that he's kind of calling for, where it's like he's going to escape all of the problems. He's already said this. He wants to be the, Martian Führer or whatever the fuck is like.
Oh my God. Is that a direct quote?
I think it's like Glorious Imperator or something like that. But I mean, come on, you can call a spade a spade. Let's call a Führer a Führer, He fully intends to leave Earth and to lead this new, I mean, in my opinion, kind of, if not autistic, certainly a little bit aspy core of, tech weirdness that have like half of which have sired his children, and the other half are like men who will do his bidding. And he's just kind of like in the oil and jelly with like a really mean Peaky Blinders thing going, and like calling his shots from this little Neuralink or whatever the fuck.
Oh, I got a Jabba the Hutt idea on that one, but he's just suspended in a solution of jelly, and he's just kind of expanding, and his brain is expanding, but like it's growing bigger because he's just got so many implants in there, and he's the Galactic Ultra Führer.
Great. That's why I don't really mind not being as extreme as I used to be. I mean, I say provocative shit all the time, but just like you, just to really get people laughing. Yeah. My core beliefs I've gotten way more like middle of the road. And I'm like, I joke about this because like, everybody in the United States, this is like a thing about how nobody wants to do their job. They're all like preparing to be the president. But in the case of Elon, he's certainly raised the bar to where by that ultra galactic Führer, whatever the fuck is definitely their goal. And I kid about this, and I think I might have even said this here in this context, but that my goals are much more modest, and I really just want to be the king of North America. But I think with good reason, because like I don't need all of that. Our father was I think the most he ever made was when he was the principal at Norma Coombs, and it was like $103,000 a year, and he lived so modestly, and you tease him about his Domino's pizza, but that to him that's the spoils of a nice middle class life where he has a couple of extra dollars and like does the bare bones are taken care of, and he has like a room for a little bit of extra, which in his case is like pizza and like a brownie. But for me, because I lapped him when I was 35, so he made that $103,000 when he was like 60s, like in 2003, so maybe like in his 50s. Okay, so he's in like his middle 50s, and I'd done that by the time I was in my 30s. And I know maybe you don't want to say this because the IRS is listening, but you did well with your dog business too.
We did good. It was vastly more than Norma Coombs.
Good, and that's all that really matters. So if that's your real benchmark, I don't have to be Elon. I'm not trying to be, a pudgy hair implant. What I really want to be is just a little bit better than dad, right? And that means happier and better stories and like a little crazier, but not too crazy like the Ericksons, right? Mom's side. What I really want to be is just a little bit more like a part of life in the world as, previous generations. And I mean, like you, I don't live in the town that I was born in. You're already winning. That just by virtue that you can like venture off of the safe pasture that you first called home. Congratulations, you're already like a leg up on most others, right? Or at least others of a previous generation, because of especially the Urbinas, right? Think about all the Urbinas around Southern California. The rebel is Joe, Dad's youngest brother. And where does he live? My God, he went all the way to Portland, Oregon. For
Wow.
shame. Right? Like amazing that he could go all the way to Oregon. Wow. Get out of here. That's not even that far. I mean, he traveled some for sure, but like, that's ridiculous. We both have ventured outside of that. And Joel, our cousin, lives in Italy, and I'm here in Mexico. You're doing your Texas thing. Those are all great things. And so if you can kind of push it a little bit, that's the only real bellwether. It's like how Lonnie was a little better than Grandpa, a little less of an alcoholic pervert, more of a steady human, but he did a little bit better job, not quite as much bullshit, right? And if maybe one day we slip one past the goalie and there's some other future offspring, if they could do a little bit better. Like Lonnie is always so disappointed when we're smarter than him. If I ever had a kid and they weren't smarter than me, I would verbally abuse them until they had learned. I'd be like, why are you not smarter than me? You're the future. We're all fucked. You're not smarter than me. You better be smarter than me. I will humiliate you at family events if you're not smart.
That is the responsibility of the child to exceed the parents.
I couldn't agree more.